I was raised and born in California, up in East LA. As we call it, the projects. Came from nothing, an alcoholic dad, a very hard, loving, working mother that tried to do her best to keep her husband, but as an alcoholic, I guess he never learned to know what he had, what was good in his life. He knew pain, he knew how to torture us, how to beat us. That was the love he knew because of alcohol. I didn't hate my dad. I really loved my dad. I never understood why he hated me. I had a brother and a sister. He favored more my brother. He favored my sister. I was the only one that was always rejected. Of course, there's always a black sheep in the family, and I was the black sheep. My dad and I would fight. We would get into some fights, and I mean fights. Like you just meet somebody at the bar, in the club, in the streets, and you just start swinging. And the only reason was because he used to hit my mother. And he had punched her in the mouth. And that's when I came from behind him. I grabbed a chair and I slammed it behind him in the head. He didn't even know where he was at. So when he finally came back to reality to see what happened, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, you hit me." But he didn't approach me. He went straight to the room. I already knew where his rifle was at. So when he ran to the room, I ran outside. I ran downstairs, and by the time I ran downstairs and I was running, he opened the door, and next thing you know, he had his rifle had a 16-shot rifle, and next thing you know, all I hear him is shooting, pow, 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 pow. I looked at him, and I can see the fire coming out of the rifle, and I felt something in my leg, and it felt hot. Picked up my leg, my pants, and I can see the hole on my leg. Second time again, I caught him hitting my mother. So I went, this time I didn't grab anything, but I grabbed his shirt, I grabbed him off my mother, and I dragged him. I dragged him all the way to his room. And I threw him right there on the floor, and then I kicked him in his head. He had his machete in between his mattress. So when I seen his hand and pulled the machete out, that's when I ran. And when I ran, I guess he reacted this time so fast that by the time I opened the door and I looked towards him, he's coming at me. And when I duck, the machete just goes right over my head and hits the wall. So this time it was more like he put his foot down and said, "You know what? Don't come back home ever." My dad kicked me out at the age of 10 years old. That's when I had nothing in my life. I didn't know how to work because I was too young to work. I had to find love somewhere else. My friends and my family was the gang outside. Of course, they jump us in, and from that point on, when you get jumped into the family, you right away are introduced to guns and drugs and money and cars and women, and so that's the life that woke me up, that I thought that was going to make me happy. Matter of fact, I started stealing cars, stealing stereos, and for the first time is when I wind up being in jail. It's called juvenile hall for kids, for young people. The first day I landed there, I did 6 months. From that point on, I kind of learned the bad ways of the jail and to learn how to survive and how to be a tough guy, that we call it. Of course, after walking in a rebellious way, you know, you're just not going to get away with a lot of things. And I wind up, of course, being in prison, attempted murder and drive-bys and whatnot. So I finally got caught, and you know, I pretty much, if you don't take the blame for somebody else, then the big guys are going to take you out in prison. Your softness and everything, you better leave at the door when you walk into the prison. Even if somebody gives you a dirty look, you better take care of that, because they're going to handle you. I went to the bathroom, and I remember washing my hands, and then I remember a voice saying, "Turn around." When I turned around, there was this guy coming at me with a shanker. He was getting ready to slice my throat open. and I fought him. And I did what I had to do to protect myself and to get out of there. I got the cuts. I got all the cuts here in my hand when I was trying to get the knife in him. I hated myself. Once again, I OD'd 3 times, and I tried to commit suicide. I tried to hang myself. I tried to jump off the buildings there in the projects. Whatever, whatever. I just didn't care about life. I wanted to take my life so bad. So we will sit, get drunk, get high, and we'll pull out a gun. And we'll put a bullet or 2 in there and play Russian roulette. We'll spin it. We'll grab it and tonk, tonk. I grabbed that gun and I clicked it twice. When they opened that gun to spin it again, when I clicked it twice, that second click, that bullet should have came out. To get to the store, there was a little alley that goes down, which was on the other side. It was the park, and then it's a shortcut to get up the hill. But as I was starting to kind of walk into this alley, and this voice says, "Don't go in there." Deep voice, which I recognize now. That was God. And I decided to go around the other way. But as I was coming down from the store, there was a police station. The police ambulance. There was tape. Everything was shut down. And when I looked, there was somebody laying dead in that alley. Somebody was stabbed to death. I did drugs, but I never did heroin. The belt was tied up, my sleeve was up, to get ready to inject this heroin in there. And a loud voice said, "No." That really scared me. And I said, "You know what? No." And I walked away from there, and I never went back to that crowd again. Then later on, the Lord spoke to me and showed me that was going to be my last day, when that heroin was going to be shot up in my veins. Because for me being a first timer, he had overloaded it. I should have been gone a long time ago, especially when 2 guys also in the streets, they robbed me because I had selling drugs and whatnot. I had drugs and money in my pocket, so they came out of nowhere too and just hit me from the back, stomp on me. They dragged me to the corner of the trash can. They broke a bottle, and I remember the guy that put his foot behind my back, grabbed me by the hair, lift up my neck, and I remember him having the bottle, and he's getting ready to slice my throat from one ear to another. And to a neighbor that popped out and said, "Hey, what are you doing? I know him." They dropped everything and they left.